Entomology is one of my favorite topics to cover in this class. The study of insects is just so huge. There are so many, just thousands and thousands of species of insects that there's never a shortage of things to learn. So we're just going to cover the basics of entomology. And why is this even important in a horticulture class? Aren't we studying plants? Well, insects are your greatest pollinators and your greatest pests in horticulture. So if you're going to raise plants, you're really going to have to know a little bit about entomology, the insects that help you and the insects that hurt you. So, when we're talking about insects, the kingdom Animalia, the phylum Arthropod, and then the class. So there's several different classes of arthropods. Arachnids. What are arachnids? If you remember that movie Arachnophobia, you know that's spiders. Crustaceans, Myriapoda, and insects. Okay? So insects are a cousin of spiders, but they're not in the same class. So spiders are not insects. Crustaceans. What are crustaceans? Crustaceans are things like shrimp and lobster. In fact, many, many years ago, I'm not sure what coast it was on, but many years ago, prisoners were being fed lots and lots of lobster because that's what was locally available. And the prisoners made a big protest because they said, we're being fed bugs. We're being fed bugs of the sea. So they did win and did not get fed as much lobster. So that was kind of, maybe they shot themselves in the foot on that. I'm not sure what they're eating now, but they're not eating bugs of the sea. So anyway, insects are related to shrimp. They are related to lobsters, but those crustaceans are not insects. Myriapoda. Myriapoda are things like centipedes and millipedes. So they are not insects. All those creepy crawlies that you see out there are not always insects. So what exactly is an insect? What makes an insect? So let's talk about the characteristics of insects themselves. And if you take pictures of insects, I would love to see them. We're not going to do an insect collection formally in this class because it would just be a little bit too difficult. But keep an eye out there and take pictures when you see some really cool insects and share them with me because I absolutely love that. I have a whole collection of creepy crawly pictures and I'll share some of them with you. So what makes an insect? First of all, insects have a three-part body. Okay? This is my great artwork of an insect, the three-part body. So it's the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. Now, how do we know spiders aren't insects? Well, first of all, we know they're not in the same class. But secondly, spiders don't have a three-part body. They have a two-part body. There, that's a spider. So a spider has a cephalothorax, ceph meaning head. So cephalothorax and an abdomen. So they're not insects. If you still want to share some pictures of spiders with me, go right ahead. I love them, but they're not insects. All right, so we have the three-part body and we have 6 legs. So how many legs does a spider have? 8, right? So a spider's not an insect. How many legs does a centipede have? About 100. So that's not an insect either. What about a roly-poly? Some people call them a pill bug. If you don't know what that is, I'll be sure and find a picture or a video for you. But anyway, a roly-poly, not an insect. Too many legs. All right? And also not the three-part body. So 6 legs. So insects also usually, and remember nature will find a way, but usually have one set of antennae on their head. So they have 2 antennae. So things like crustaceans often will have actually 2 sets of antennae. So they'll have 4 antennae and also maybe 10 to 12 legs. You know, shrimp, if you've ever peeled a shrimp, you know they have a lot more legs. So anyway, insects usually have 1 set of antennae on their head. The other thing is, if you've ever stepped on an insect, you've probably heard a little crunch. They have an exoskeleton. So the parts of them that gives them their firmness is the exoskeleton, not bones. All right. Another thing that most insects have, not all, but most insects have 2 sets of wings. Now, when I say now all insects do have wings, you might be thinking like, oh, a beetle doesn't have wings. Yes, a beetle does have wings. The outer hard wings are actually wings. And then they have a delicate underwing. So all insects have wings. There's one order, Diptera, that only has one set of wings. So Diptera would be things like flies, mosquitoes. They just have two wings, not the outer wings and the underwings. But all insects have wings as adults, So the juvenile often does not have wings. Think about an example like a butterfly has beautiful wings, but when it's a juvenile, we know it's a caterpillar, which definitely does not have wings. So we're definitely talking about the adult phase of the insects having wings. So those are how you can determine whether you're looking at an insect or a cousin of an insect. And all the cousins are under the phylum Arthropod. I've got a little wasp to show you, but I'll show you that in a minute. So I want to talk about metamorphosis of insects since we just talked about the caterpillar and the butterfly. So we know that insects do go through metamorphosis. Not all insects go through the same phases of metamorphosis. And this is really cool too because you're going to see on the slideshow, I found the most gruesome, disgusting insect one time. I thought I had discovered something. I thought I had discovered like a combination between a tick, a bedbug, a flea that had been radioactivated because I didn't know what it was. Then I found out what it was, and it was simply a juvenile stage of a dragonfly. So you're going to see that disgusting thing that I found on the slideshow, and it was really cool to find it. If I can find my actual original video, I'm gonna post it on probably on Facebook. So anyway, it's really cool to learn about all the different phases of insects so you can identify them and not be afraid when you find something really gross. So anyway, there's two phases of metamorphosis: complete and incomplete. Now, this has nothing to do with whether they finish their metamorphosis or not. Both of these are complete metamorphosis transitions. Well, that was confusing. One's complete, one's incomplete. They're both full metamorphosis transitions, okay? It has nothing to do with one's finished, one's not finished. They're just two separate ones. So your complete metamorphosis, I want you to think about when your insect goes through a change where they turn to goo and are completely reconstructed, okay? That would be a pupa stage. That's when they go through the complete metamorphosis. So your complete metamorphosis is egg, larva, pupa, and adult. Now, when we talk about the larva stage, we're talking about morphologically a worm stage. Now, do you remember the word morphology? Morphology refers, remember, to the structure or the shape. So a larva stage is morphologically a worm. It's not really a worm. It's not really like related to an earthworm, but its structure or shape is worm-like or grub-like. So that would be larva. Your pupa is your resting phase. So that's where the insect won't be mobile. They'll attach and form a little cocoon or form a little shell. And to us, it looks like they're resting. But really what's going on inside is fascinating. On the inside, they're doing hard work. On the inside of that cocoon or that chrysalis, they are turning into goo, completely gooing up, and then they are reconstructing into a new creature. So for your butterfly or your moth, which are both in the same order of Lepidoptera, they're related very closely. You have an egg, the egg hatches, and you have a caterpillar, okay? Then after your caterpillar, you have a cocoon or a chrysalis. Butterflies actually make chrysalis, not cocoon. It's very similar, but the chrysalis is smoother, harder. So when you hear kids kind of learn butterflies make cocoons, they don't. Moths make cocoons. Moths are really cute and kind of fat and fuzzy, whereas butterflies are sleek and slender. So a chrysalis is what a butterfly makes, and a cocoon is what a moth makes. So anyway, so when they're in their chrysalis or their cocoon, they're just complete. That caterpillar is turning into goo. So that caterpillar must think they're dying. But then they reemerge, they're reborn as a beautiful butterfly. So that's your complete. Now, So if they go through this goo and reconstruction phase, that means the adult and the juvenile are very, very different, right? So why would that be a good thing in the insect world? That helps the juveniles and the adults not compete for resources. They have different food sources. They have different environments. Think about a caterpillar crawls on the ground and a butterfly flies above. So they have different environments. So it cuts down on competition for resources between the adult and the juvenile. Incomplete. I feel a sneeze coming on, so if it comes, I'm going to pre-apologize. Egg, nymph, adult. All right, so egg, nymph, adult. So in a incomplete metamorphosis, we have where the juvenile and the adult can look very, very different, but they kind of have the same environment. For example, dragonflies, you're going to find both adult and the juvenile around water sources, ponds, rivers, things like that. So they're an egg, and then they come out as a nymph. Nymph often doesn't have wings. They do look very different than the adults. They won't have wings. They can have a totally different sort of appearance, as you're going to see in the slideshow, okay? But what happens to the nymph is the nymph actually sheds its exoskeleton and comes out a little bit more adult. Then it could go through another nymph stage and another nymph stage. So the number of nymph stages really depends on the species itself, but every time it emerges from the exoskeleton, it comes out a little closer to that adult winged stage. So again, you're going to see on the slideshow how a beautiful dragonfly has a really ugly duckling nymph stage. So anyway, one thing I want to tell you about nymphs, on pine trees, for those of y'all that are around a lot of pine trees, usually this is where you find them. Have you ever found one of those little shells, a little insect shell, a little cicada shell is what it actually is. And as a kids, we stuck them on us. They kind of have those little sharp little sticky feet that you can stick on you. That isn't actually a nymph. That's an exoskeleton of a nymph stage of a cicada that they left their exoskeleton behind on the pine tree. So those are the metamorphosis processes for insects. So now what I want to do is show you my wasp, and I'm going to tell you when you watch the slideshow, you're going to get to a part that says important orders. Normally in class I would talk about all of those, but I don't want you to worry about it. You've got a handout of orders, and I want you to look at your handout, okay? The handout will tell you your order names, and it'll have a little illustration of what each order is. For example, dragonflies are in the order Odonata, all right? Bees, ants, wasps, those are all in the order Hymenoptera. Now, why is it important to know orders? When you're learning about insects, there's so many different species. It would be just almost impossible to get down to the exact species of every single insect. So it's really easy to categorize them in larger categories so you can learn about Hymenoptera characteristics. Remember, categorization is shortcut to learning, a shortcut to some information. So, and I'm sorry, I think someone just texted me, y'all probably heard that. But anyway, so it's important to know your orders. For example, butterflies and moths are Lepidoptera. So that tells us, when you say Lepidoptera, that tells us something about this insect without you having to get down to the exact species. So that's why I want you to know the orders. So look at your handout. Don't worry so much about the order names or figuring out the orders on the slideshow, but do watch the rest of the slideshow until the end. All right, so I am going to try to carry my little videoer over here and show you this little Hymenoptera that I found. Okay, let's see if I can find a better. Hold on. Stay with me. Get a little more light. Okay, so this guy right here. Oh, he's so cool. So if you find a dead one, it's really, now remember on a Hymenoptera, which has a stinger, they can still sting you when they're dead. So you do want to be careful. But I'm trying to see if you can see the two sets of wings. He actually, I can see him in person. He's got this big outer wing, and then maybe you can see the little delicate underwing there. There we go, right here on this side. You can see it pretty well. But if you find a dead insect, you can really look at the different parts of the body, the different 6 legs, 2 sets of wings, unless it's a diptera, there you go. You can see the second little wing there, diptera will only have 1 set of wings. So anyway, this is a Hymenoptera. Hymenoptera, you can think of them as stinging things, ants, wasps, bees. So speaking of bees, and I'll put my videoer back up. There, now I can talk to you again. So speaking of bees, a lot of people think that bees are the only pollinators out there. So that's totally not the case. We need honeybees. Honeybees actually pollinate most of our food sources. So honeybees are really, really important, and honeybees are on the decline right now, whether it's due to viruses or parasites that get into the bee colonies, or whether it's due to pesticides, which is a big, big reason. Honeybees are on the decline, so we need honeybee keepers. And there's all kinds of ways you can keep honeybees even in urban areas, so that's really important. But anyway, honeybees are our biggest food crop pollinators, but believe it or not, beetles are our biggest pollinators overall. Beetles pollinate more plants than honeybees do. There's also pollinating wasps. There's all kinds of things, like lots and lots of insects that are pollinators. So you don't want to assume that it's just bees that are the pollinators. I've also got a handout for you of your greatest pollinators and your greatest horticultural pests in our area. So be sure and look at that handout as well. All right, so I'm going to leave you to it. I want you to look at the world around you, see if you can find some insect pictures for me. Don't get them off Google, because we can all Google. But if you see an insect, share it with me on Facebook. I'd love that. Or text it to me, message it to me, whatever. And I'm going to put some of my stuff up on Facebook so you can see it. All right, have a great day. See you next video.